She has started. Oh, God.
Anyway, hello viewers, hello listeners. Welcome to episode 4 of this podcast. Today I'm here with Patricia Alinda, Brother Derek, Divine.
Everybody, it's nice to be on this podcast or YouTube channel for Malleng. It's a blessing getting to meet Patricia again, Sarah again, Viola again. I've known these Jesus ladies, I want to call them, for a minute, and doing great things with God and just loving Jesus. So it's great to be here. This is my sister. The story of how I met her is very unique, but it's a blessing to be on the podcast. Is that a podcast? On YouTube?
Yeah, whichever channel. It's a pleasure having you as well. All the way from South. I don't know which one, North, South, but one of them, the Carolinas, still in the United States. Welcome. It's a blessing. I know you as a very powerful prayer warrior guy, a Jesus guy, and of course you guys know Sarah and Viola. We're back to our same topic of salvation, and today it's just, again, like we say, open discussion, and feel free to comment, or if you have a view that you want to share, feel free to comment on the YouTube channel or the Facebook page or on the Malleng website as well. And so we again back to the same topic.
Yeah, we're back to the same topic. I feel like salvation is so wide and broad, and I don't think we can actually exhaust everything about salvation, but slowly by slowly we'll get there. At least we are trying to tackle the most important basics about salvation. Yeah, so we will be talking about salvation itself, what it means, how we can live a full life as Christians, regardless of whether you are saved or just love Jesus too much. How can you live a full life, a joyous life as a Christian? And we are 4 people. We all have different views, but they all rotate around the same main point, which is Jesus Christ. And yeah, so because we're having Brother Derek for the first time on the podcast, I would like you to tell us about salvation.
How did you get saved?
How did you get saved, actually? Yeah.
Salvation for me, thank you, Viola, and thanks again for being on this platform. I know you guys are doing great things for the kingdom. Talking about salvation and how I got saved, I wouldn't say salvation to me is an end point. It's been a journey. I continue to be saved every day. I die daily, but there are levels to salvation as I know it to be. There are different pointers in my life that pushed me towards that final decision to become saved. Key people in my life that I would say they influenced my decision to become saved. First off is the knowledge of Jesus. He's the foundation of anything worth salvaging, like me. I'm the least. I always want to put myself that way. I don't see myself as someone that has attained a certain level of righteousness. But at some point in my life, salvation for me was through the eyes of my mom. My mom taught me how to pray. She took us to church when we were younger. Those seeds of just following Jesus blindly, serving God at 10, waking up at 6 a.m. to go pick up drums, to go set up the church, make sure the church was right back home. Those were seeds of salvation for me. Just being able to organize something worthy to raise a sound of praise or worship. Those were pointers for me. And then my late brother, I spent most of my life with him. He has the greatest influence on my life. As young as 7, 8, 9, Eric was already organizing worship events, teaching adults how to sing in parks. And I was always at the backdrop of it. And I mean, every school I went to, he went to. And he was the one that first introduced me to Kirk Franklin's Star Mission. I mean, those old, anything music-wise, he introduced me to it. I was always on the backdrop. But my mom, Eric, and a couple of events happened. I mean, I've always been around the church. But I think a big turning point for me was 2017. 2015, I finished from the UK, went back to Nigeria with my wife. So I'm married with 4 beautiful boys, and my beautiful wife as well. Went back to Nigeria in August, and in December, while everybody was celebrating on Christmas Day, myself and my wife were in the hospital. We lost a baby on Christmas Day. My brother was still alive then. That was 2015, December. And then 2016, another person died in my wife's family. It was a second parent who had died to cancer. I couldn't come. And at that point, myself and my wife, people want to create marriage as this beautiful Instagram picture that looks very perfect.
Picture perfect.
Yeah.
But at that time, we were really back and forth, not really knowing where we stood in marriage. Probably 5 years between ourselves in marriage, across 3 different countries, traveling back and forth. But then 2017 happened. Then my brother passed on. I remember going to go get this can be caught out, but he was so excited that I got my visa, because my goal, I'm not even supposed to be in the US. My goal was to come to the US for the birth of my second son. So January I got the visa, he was excited. February 11th he had died. In the space of 3 weeks he was already gone. So at that point in time, I think it changed something on the inside of me. Gave me a drive. So many of you would hear me say I'm not a worshiper, because I'm not. I've been around worshipers to know what worship should sound like. And so I just make sounds, and I hope that it sounds good. And so when that mantle dropped, I realized that salvation for me has to be on a daily basis. 2017, when I came, I was depressed. I was eating, I was fat. I was 62 pounds after I lost my brother. Because at that point, I was very angry. Very angry. I'm sure my wife would say yes. I used to spaz out because I didn't know how to cope.
You were talking about grief.
Grief. I didn't know how to cope with the grief, losing him. But those are key events in my life. Maybe I missed one. The biggest one was somewhere in South Africa. I'd been there for 5 years. Supposed to have been there for 4. And long story short, God saved me. I can't go into the details because we probably take the whole day to explain that. But God did save me from something I never thought I would have been saved from. And since then, before that, my mom, my brother, and following through the death of my baby, my father-in-law, and my brother in 2017. I think all these events, when I look at salvation, to me, I always say, sometimes I say to my mom, if I could choose between me and my late brother, I probably would choose me. Because I feel like the world needs more of Eric than it needs more of me. And I'm not saying that in any kind of way. I'm saying that in the most humble way
In
because
the
he
most
was
humble way.
he was a beautiful human being, to say the least. And by beautiful, I mean beautiful in any way. But I segue
It's-
back to salvation.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's it's interesting that it took you that journey, and sometimes God does things for really crazy reasons that we can't explain. It probably took for your brother to go for God to manifest through in your life, right? And for you to make that turnaround, you'd have probably taken it for granted, right? Because sometimes we tend to think that the people we love, the salvation they carry is for us as well, right? But when it's actually not. And that experience, and again, we also sometimes get saved because of the situations we've been through, and sometimes those are the actual situations that we needed to go through in order to actually realize that truly there's someone pushing you. Like my friend Lydia always says, God truly slapped you in the face, right? I'm like, if he did, why do I have to go through what I'm going through? Like this doesn't make sense. But again, his ways are not our ways, right? Yeah. But thank you for sharing. That's such a personal question. It's such a personal story that I respect you sharing that, because at the end of the day, it shows your healing. You've healed from it. For some people, they don't heal from such experiences, even when I know you're fine.
And need I say, so that was probably 20 odd years ago.
Yeah.
So I'm now married now. I met my wife at a place called Broken. Her being broken, me being broken, lost mother, eventually lost father. And in the journey of salvation, one might be saved more than the other. And I think where I am now in my journey, in my relationship with Jesus, is consciously trying to reflect Christ through everything he has done for me, my relationship with my wife, in my relationship with my boys. And I think that's where I am with that in this season of my life. Because look at it this way, at some point in time you look at yourself and you say, Pastor Paul Washer would say, you call me a man of God because you see me preaching a word of God on the altar. You don't see what I do outside of the altar. And I think with my walk with God of late, recently, the past 2, 3, 4 years, I've really been conscious of that. Like beyond being in front of the altar, what is really going on? Are you accountable to God more than you are accountable to the people that think that you carry a kind of grace? And I think that level of accountability is needed in the church. That's why many people are abused in secret in church. And we cover it with words of grace. And God loves the sinners. But the sinners are, the true sinners now in the church are really the sheeps in wolves' clothing.
Almost mocking God.
Almost mocking God. And I'm a student of Prophet Tommy Rayami, and in his book, The Cosmopolitan Christian, he says, what if the solution to wolves in sheep's clothing are sheeps in wolves' clothing? So you go in incognito, and we always have this. So what is the message of salvation? It's good that you're talking about salvation. And it's more or less 99 to 1. Leave the 99 and go for the
Go
one.
for the one.
And the past 1 year, I feel like we need to reverse that. Because we have the 99 that we think are secure in the church, but are really lost. They are lost because they are deceived by men of God who claim that they know Jesus, but they see how they can't even have the spirit of self-control, and they're wondering, how can this person be a mirror image of Jesus? What they are preaching does not match how they live their life. And so there has to be the 99 that need to be found,
and grounded
in the church. As we stand as a church talking about salvation, I have hope for the one that is lost, than the 99 that are
That
secure,
is still that are
quote unquote
Ooh,
secure.
yeah.
Because the assumption is that the 99 are
are
saved,
okay.
Yeah.
but they are not. I mean, I've been around many churches from Nigeria to Lesotho to Swaziland to South Africa to here. I can tell you that there's a huge deception about salvation. It starts with the altar call. The day you're saved, you hear people say, I was saved 1972 July 4th
Yeah.
at 12 p.m.
To the dot.
It's that mentality of once saved, forever saved. And that consistency of dying daily is not there. It's more or less like, well,
Yeah.
we can get away with murder
Yeah.
and still claim that we are Christian. And that's why you would, before this conversation started, you were saying something about Christian. I don't want to be controversial. The disciples did not call themselves Christians. They called themselves disciples. When you overgeneralize a people, you are no longer specific with what they
With
believe.
what? And yet it's a personal relationship.
Thank you. So for me, I want to be a disciple. I want to be a servant. What does that mean? It means that I have to leave everything that I love, genuinely
And
love,
follow Jesus.
and follow Jesus. So there are two powerful words in the Bible that people don't ever talk about. Follow me. And
What does following Jesus mean? That's key, because that following of Jesus is what defines you as a disciple.
Yeah.
so let's understand follow me in context. Jesus had prayed for his ministry for a while, 40 days, 40 nights, was tempted by the devil, not welcomed by angels or welcomed by the hosts of heaven. And after he was tempted, he chose his disciples. In choosing his disciples were doing something. They were fishermen.
Yeah.
They had an occupation. They had their family in the boat. So, I mean, they had the water that they had to sail on every day, go on the road back and forth. What did they have to leave? And what did Jesus say? Follow me. I will make you. I will make you what? Fishers of
Fishers of
men.
men.
So the same occupation that they were doing, Jesus didn't try to make them astronauts. He made them in the same environment that they were used to. So if you're a medical doctor, he wants to make you fishers of men in the medical
In the medical field.
If you're a psychologist, he wants to make you fishers of men in the psychology realm. And to your question, what do you have to leave to follow Jesus?
Ooh.
A book by Bishop Dag Heward-Mills called Losing, Sacrificing, Suffering, and Dying. He says these are the 4 mandates of every Christian. You have to lose to follow Christ. You have to suffer for your belief in Christ. You have to die for what you believe. And all these things we no longer talk about in church because everybody wants a fancy house, a yacht. Everybody wants to have a private jet. Everybody wants to live this false life. The book itself is Losing, Suffering, Sacrificing, and Dying. The 4 mandates that every Christian believer needs to go through for them to be able to follow Jesus. And in explaining that, the analogy I would use is Jesus and the disciples in the boat and the command, follow me, and he will make you. In making you, you have to understand the context, like I was explaining, of what they were doing and what they had to sacrifice to follow Jesus. It meant that the fish that they were catching no longer was the source of income, but Jesus became the source of income. It means that the family that they had gone for many years with to the river or to the sea where they fished no longer counted. The earth became their platform to fish for men that were lost. Their lives became the example of what following someone really looks like. And that's why I say being Christian or being a disciple is 2 different things. being a bond servant of Jesus more so is like being a disciple. And if you see how Apostle Paul and the disciples wrote letters, they would say, I, Paul, a bond servant of Jesus. So a bond servant in yourself, you're free, but by your choice, you decide to say, I will serve God with my life. So following Jesus in itself, the things that you have to sacrifice, sometimes your family, sometimes your friends, that will easily pull you back to deception, sometimes yourself. I mean, in the African church, most of the time when we hear prayers about deliverance and following Jesus, when you hear prayers for your enemies, you'd understand that the decibels in the church become louder because people are praying for their enemies to die. And sometimes you are your enemy.
You're your own enemy, yeah.
And following Jesus comes at a price. The question is, are we willing as Christians to pay that price, to follow him daily? It's more painful when you hear like the fruits of the Spirit. You hear people talk about love, patience, joy. That's the beautiful side of
Christianity.
Following Jesus. When you start hearing long suffering, patience, perseverance, and like, oh God, I want the fruits of the Spirit. I want to reflect your image. What does that really mean? Do you even know what you're saying? If you pray for patience today and God really wants to test your patience, he'll be testing your patience
With
as you drive
by the way,
everything.
it comes when the moment you want that one.
Yeah.
That's exactly that keeps coming in that season to test.
Yeah.
Oh,
And
yeah, it does test.
Anyway,
So I think that people, even going off of that, like people have said, you'll ask God for a gift, but he's not going to give you that exact thing.
Yeah.
He's going to give you the situations to help you grow to become that
Yeah.
thing that you're asking for.
Yeah.
So that was good.
It kind of like the situations that come your way, if you've noticed that you've given your life to Christ, that, and the reason I think it's harder for people and they choose to, you know what, this thing is, I'm tired. You find someone who started off so well giving their life to Christ, journeys, after 4 months, they're like, you know what, I'm missing my friends, I'm going back there. Oh, I'm missing this, I'm going back. They don't verbalize it, but the inside of them, just because now they've been put to the test, but they just can't hold on anymore. They feel like the other side of it is missing. But that process of that test, what it's doing, it's actually peeling you. If you hang in there a little longer, you begin to see the fruits of it manifesting. You begin to see that peace of mind coming. You begin to see how easy it is to say no to certain things.
But then I think, like you mentioned the altar call, right? And so they'll be like, okay, if you've accepted Christ as your Lord and Savior, come to the front, we'll pray for you and things like that. But connecting that with what you just said, I blame the church.
Yes.
We do so much of altar calls, but there's no follow-up. There's no
follow-up.
assistance in that journey, especially for someone who may know who God is. Or, sorry, especially for someone who doesn't know who God is at all, and they're starting this thing brand new.
Yeah.
They see people like, oh, this person lives a holy life. Obviously, it's from what they see in places of the church, but it's never behind the scenes. And so, like, what work is this person doing to
grow.
get to this point to grow? I don't think the church does enough
To make those personal follow-ups.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And
And-
to help guide people.
Yeah. Oh, we get used to like having you come every Sunday, and we expect that one someone to change you.
Right.
But the truth is that someone might not be for you that day. There's a whole journey that, a process that needs to be
Yeah.
in place for you to actually begin realizing that. I love what some of the churches do. Like, I speak for Emmanuel. Like, all you need to do is go there, give your life. They'll give you a follow-up. These groups, they get you plugged in. They'll get someone to hold your hand through the journey. Like my husband, he's still a Catholic, but even in that process, like the first time we went there, they told him, oh, you know what, there's a men's fellowship group that, we check in every Tuesday in the morning before you go to work. And so he started playing. He was like, oh my God, there's a men's fellowship. Then before he knew it, he was picking up things to do to help with the church, right? And gradually he plugged in. But I can tell you, he still says, I'm still Catholic. And I'm like, it's not about the religion. At least you're seeing the works of what faith is and what, Christianity is and what discipleship is or what that looks like. Like the things that, like it helps you change. If the church could only have that process, it helps you begin to change your thinking. And gradually you realize that you begin to walk with people that are similar in faith.
Yeah.
And that helps a lot in that growth process.
Yeah.
It's good that you say that, and I actually do have a message for people who came strong with Jesus, right, lack of a better words, ride or die in church, legitimately hurt by a stray wolf in sheep's
the church.
clothing. Which would you rather be? And this is a big question we need to answer. Broad is the way that leads to destruction, and many find it. We're not trying to be super religious. If you look at the world today, the number of people on the side of darkness, quote unquote, are more than those that are in light. Imagine one person, imagine 12 disciples having the ability to transform the world to the point where we are now, still talking about Jesus. Remember all the prophets that we're reading about, only for Jesus to come to say, I fulfilled the prophets and the law. If those 12 people didn't choose to obey the call to follow Jesus, what
We
are we
wouldn't have
talking about?
salvation.
This what we're talking about should not even exist.
Yeah.
And so you following Jesus is not for you. Yes, the journey is to rid you of many things that are bedeviling your soul.
Yes.
But at the end of the day, if you become saved, imagine truly saved. Imagine what that can do to
The
your
person next to
family,
you.
your children, the community around you. I mean, you are not only a fisher of one man, you're a fisher of
many.
nations. And so to you who are in church again, who have been around many men of God, quote unquote, I believe salvation is in the secret place.
Yeah.
And salvation in the secret place is more powerful than public
display.
public display of affection.
Yeah.
And I think the church in itself is so heavy on public display of affection to the detriment of those that really want to find Jesus in the secret place.
Yeah.
And nobody's really talking about how we can find him in the secret place. We come in church, we have an appearance of godliness.
Yeah.
I can ask you how you're doing. You're so high spiritual. I'm blessed and highly favored. But deep down, you are hurt, you are depressed, your mind is stuck, and you're really begging in your heart of hearts, like, God, I need someone. I need you to save me. And
I've seen people get desperate to a point that they, when they resent church, they don't want to know anything about church.
Yeah.
They'll and I have a couple of friends that have been walking this salvation longer than I have. They can quote the Bible from beginning to the end, and you can't tell them otherwise about the church.
Yeah.
They're so done with the church. And so you wonder, like, what exactly is going on?
Yeah.
Right? Like, what exactly is like, oh no, this whole bishop thing, this whole pastor thing, I don't care for it.
Yeah.
and even these days, men of God, man of God, woman of God, prophet, apostle, bishop, archbishop, very reverend, all these high sounding names. The most scariest part of dying, going back to Bishop Dag, Heward Mills' book, is when you die, not if you die.
Because that when is there
Because
for everyone.
when
It's
is
for everyone.
inevitable for everyone. What would be the testament of heaven about your existence on this side of eternity? Would it be good and faithful servant? Or would it be depart from me, you worker of iniquity? I think we have not weighed these two consequences to the point where we say, I'd rather be working out my salvation with fear and trembling. Because the fear and trembling part is thrown out the window nowadays. God is like your body. And I don't
Feel good
jump-
salvation.
Yes.
Yeah.
But we don't really understand what it means for us to like work out. It's gym out. So if your muscle was weak in patience, the Bible is saying you should work out literally. That's what it means. Work out your patience with fear and trembling. Work on your anger with fear and trembling. Work on things that easily entangles you.
Mm-hmm.
I would always say to people, I'm Christian. This is, I was listening to a message by Tommy Arami this past week, and he was saying something, is it your iPhone or is it your idol? You wake up in the morning, it's the first thing you touch.
Yeah.
What's the funny song?
Did you post that on WhatsApp or something?
No, I think I posted, no,
I know I saw it today. I
What
literally
was
saw
it?
that exact
What was
same
it?
thing. It said, is it an iPhone or an
Or
idol?
idol.
I literally remember seeing that too. I was like, hold on, so I gotta bring it up.
Yeah.
yeah, so
How many times you open the Bible? That's the
yes.
crazy song.
Yeah.
So, but I'm saying that to say this. Secret salvation with a firm assurance and the fear of God, to me, is better than a public display. Of I love you, God.
Yeah.
And this phone, for instance, I mean, driving here, I was talking to my wife. I'm like, my phone in itself, anybody can go into my phone. Anybody can go into my phone. There is no contraband in here. I mean, I believe that if someone goes into my phone as a non-believing Christian, they should be saved. They should be able to look at my phone and say, oh, wow, this is what Derek is looking at.
I need to check mine. I need to check mine.
Hey, we're
how is yours?
not going to talk about that
I need
today,
to
but
check
yeah.
mine.
It's a daily walk.
It's a daily walk. I'm still an onion. I'm being peeled, okay?
No, but I love that you are honest about it. And these are the things that we really need to talk about in the body of Christ. Is that, you know, if your life is played, and we were talking about this before, if your life is played on a screen and it's a movie for everybody to sit down and watch.
Like the inner life.
The inner life.
Inner one, yeah.
The inner life. The pornographic things that you watch on your phone when no one is watching.
Yeah.
And being saved and having the fear of God need to be intertwined. Ask me why. If you have not trained your mind, your eyes, your ears to be able to resist certain things, you will be a high sounding Christian but a closet sinner.
So that's very,
So help us God.
that's very powerful, and